I want to talk about China in the many ways that it is a danger to America, and that those, especially blacks who aren't against, having Chinese products and have the clothing and then the food and stuff, like how you're hypocritical when it comes to slavery, because you benefit from other people's slavery. First off, one of the dangers is they're buying up land, the actual government of China. So this article is called, it's by LifeZet, and it's Chinese buy strategic land in Texas. U.S. intel may not be pleased. So, given its hold on many American Democrat politicians, Joe Biden among them, and its aggressive global stance, it is not surprising that testimony to the Senate Judiciary Committee in July 2019, FBI Director Christopher Wray emphasized there is no country that possesses a more severe counterintelligence threat right now than Texas, for what they say is an economic project. U.S. intelligence is casting a suspicious eye on their claim. Retired CIA Station Chief Daniel Hoffman told the media the specific location in Uighurs' crosshairs is the iconic frontier landscape framed by the pristine Devil's River and legendary Pecos River in the West Texas borderlands of Val Verde County. Beginning in 2015, GH America Investment Group purchased over 130,000 acres of property in Valde County. GH America is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Oxygen-based Guanghai Industry Investment Group. Oxygen is notorious for its so-called re-education camps where China detains the Uyghur Muslims and other ethnic minorities against their will and violate their human rights. And I got articles on that, so we're going to be getting into that. And you see how they name it like America, and they do the same thing on Amazon too. Like they have American names. Like I bought some boots. I think the company was called like Free Soldier, right? And it's veteran owned, right? So I thought, oh well, this must be a made in America. Like wrong. Like on the boots it says made in China. I was upset. That's upsetting. So, all right. So he sees the potential for espionage against the U.S. from within our own country, says Hoffman. I will loudly ring alarm bells about the threats to our national security from GH America and its Chinese Communist Party overlords. Song Guanxin, the founder and director of Xinjiang Guanghai Industry Investment Group, served in the Chinese People's Liberation Army, and was the vice chairman of the Oxygen Provincial Youth Federation, having long maintained a close relationship with China's Communist Party leadership. Sun is one of the 200 wealthiest businessmen in China. Sun reportedly overpaid for the land in Val Verde County, and the Blue Hills wind project appears to be his only renewable energy project in the U.S. So I'll link this one down there, and then let's see. And they're also a threat to our they're buying up our companies and stuff in the U.S. And so like a lot of our food and stuff is Chinese owned and stuff. Like some of the main brands that we're getting that you're thinking you're eating an American company. And it's not. It's owned by China. It's China benefiting from it. So like as they purchase up all these different areas, when they say they own like our food company or food processing companies, when they own when they own lots of our land that we need for like when they own some of the senators and representatives in the House, like this is now a threat to our country, to our nation, to our Constitution, to the people of America. They've betrayed us. The people who are supposed to be safeguarding us are no longer safeguarding us. And like, don't get me wrong, like I believe in the free market, but I don't believe in suicide. Having your enemy own companies, or especially a bunch of companies and a bunch of land in your country, is not a good thing. And China is our enemy. And they spend a lot of money subverting our kids at college and in our schools. They are fighting the war on all fronts, and you are just waking up to this. The Marxists in our country are connected with our enemies, Russia and China, and the UN. The UN is one of our enemies, believe it or not. Lots of those countries in there are part of this subversion. They're hoping for the fall of America. That's why we need to leave the UN. And on Trump, with this I agree. Like the UN is I mean, we should have left the UN completely. And then had that money come back here. We need to stop giving so much money to other countries and start focusing on our own country, our own problems and stuff like that. Like we got to get like right now, we are not a good country. Like our financially, it is going down the tubes. You're going to start seeing the price on food go up. You're going to start seeing the price on gas. All this, the policies, they're undermining our country. All right, so Sioux Falls meat packing plant was forced to close when it became the epicenter of COVID-19 in South Dakota. 3 weeks after executives from its Chinese-owned WH Group visited the plant, a month after President Trump ban on travel from China, nearly 600 of Smith's Foods' 3,700 employees tested positive for the virus, as have 135 additional people in close contact with the employees. Smithfield Foods started in 1936 by a family in Virginia. Today, the Chinese owned Amore and the famous Smith hams, together with the most quintessential American brand of all, Nathan's famous hot dogs, with its iconic annual eating contest. In 2013, Smith Foods was bought by the Shanghai Group, later rebranded as WH Group, for $4.7 billion. It remains the largest total acquisition of U.S. company by the Chinese. With that purchase, Chinese own 1 in 4 pigs raised in the U.S. Man, 1 in 4. That's oof. And by adding 146,000 acres, continued to the world's largest buyer of American farmland. Continued to be. The purchase was underwritten with a $4 billion Bank of China loan facilitated by the Chinese Communist Party. The deal was integral part of the CCP's 2011 5-year plan to improve the Chinese economy with purchase of overseas farmland and food processing companies. Food is poised to become the oil of the 21st century. And that's the thing. The UN knows this. There's other companies that have a computer that's monitoring. Like there's coming a food shortage. There's a coming food shortage, right? And so food is going to be very important. So 20% increasing. So food is poised to become the oil of the 21st century, with the demand increasing for a scarce resource. The CCP identified meat processing as a strategically important industry, and with the Smithfield acquisition, China gained access to the world's most advanced animal processing technology. Former Smith CEO Larry Pope said, in many respects, this is carrying out the Chinese government's 5-year plan, which is to improve the quality and security of their food. But see, this is the thing. He's willing to sacrifice us for them. I don't know him, but whoever sold it, he was willing to sacrifice us for them, and they plan. But the truth is it was probably already planned. I'm not saying that he did it, or I don't know who did it, but there's a very good possibility that it was already planned, because there are a lot of traitors in America. I'm not saying he's a traitor, I'm saying there's a possibility that any of the people that were involved with this deal were selling out America on purpose. I don't know. I'm just saying. Respects. This is carrying out the Chinese government. Oh yeah, okay. The Chinese consume half of the world's pork production. Pork supply is so important to them that just as the U.S. government maintains a strategic oil reserve, China stashes away vast amounts of frozen pork in case of shortages, outbreaks of swine disease, or war. Smithfield has retooled to give greater focus to the Chinese market, which hurts us. It means that there's no that lowers food production here and the what's available to us. Like they bought the company, so they should be able to take it, but they have to move the company back to. They have to take the stuff and go back to China. That's right, I said it. Go back to China. Yeah, they shouldn't be able to buy land here. They shouldn't be able to own companies here. So, yeah, because they're our enemy. It's not like it's an ally, it's an enemy. Smithfield retooled down the road. Frozen pork continued. Well, I'm going to link this article. You can read it for yourself. Now let's move on to slavery, right? Which they take these Muslims and Christians and stuff like this, but right now they're really hammering the Muslims. And a guy was talking to me. He commented on here. He's telling me how they take the husbands to a camp, and then they'll leave a Chinese person at their house to bang their wife, right? So that the next generation is Chinese. Like, that is evil. I don't care if they're Muslim. I don't care. That is evil. The Chinese government is evil. Like, American government is evil too. I'm not talking about like the Constitution or capitalism or that. I'm talking about like our actions. Some of the people in government are evil, and they're manipulating people. But I digress. A lot of Americans are slaves mentally, and they will continue to be slaves. And it is up to people who actually can think for themselves and can combat this and see the danger to save them. Because if we don't save them, they'll murder us. They are the Germans who stood by and cheered as the Jews were like kicked out. They are the Germans who looked the other way as the Jews were murdered. They're the Germans that looked the other way when the mentally handicapped people were being rounded up and put in trucks and murdered. Like, they are the Nazis that they're always talking about and all that stuff. Like, that's them. But they've been so conditioned that they can't see it, and then they they put that off on other people. But when in actuality, it's them. And this is a tactic of the left. And it's genius, but it's manipulation. So let's talk about, over 570,000 Uighurs forced to pick cotton in Xinjiang, report says. Beijing, hundreds of thousands of ethnic minority laborers in China northwest Xinjiang region are being forced to pick cotton by hand through a coercive state labor scheme, a report has said. Rights activists have said that the northwestern Xinjiang region is home to a vast network of extrajudicial internment camps that have imprisoned at least 1 million people, which China has defended as vocational training centers to counter extremism. Basically means they're concentration camps, forced labor camps. They're gulags. You could like they're communists. They're evil pigs. They're communist evil pigs. I don't care if Marxists and this is what you're fighting for. This is what you're going to get. And they've already started talking about this in America. Remember in my other video when I talked about the Harvard students who wanted to revoke diplomas. So a report by Washington-based think tank, the Center for Global Policy, published Monday, which referenced online government documents, said that in 2018, 3 majority Uyghur regions within Xinjiang was sent at least 570,000 people to pick cotton as part of state-run coercive labor transfer scheme. Researchers estimate that the total number involved in coerced Xinjiang cotton picking, which relies heavily on manual labor, exceeds that figure by several 100,000. Xinjiang is a global hub for the crop, producing over 20%, and a lot of that cotton is in your Nike products and your other stuff that you read. Any of those places that get their stuff manufactured in China. So when Colin Kaepernick is kneeling, he's talking about the oppressiveness of America and the bad stuff is done. Like he's actually, and then he's letting slaves pick cotton for his products in China, and put them together. It's funny. It is funny. I guess it's not him per se, but he's with a company that's doing it. Like he doesn't care because for him, it's probably most likely just for money. That's what all the left does. They virtue signal and they have these schemes of how they can become relevant and make money off of it. And they do. It's fucking genius. It is genius. So I'm gonna let you finish reading that, but we'll move on. Now, let's look at blacks, right? So if you're black and your Democratic senator, right, supports the trade deals and stuff with China, if they're getting any kind of money from China in any other way, like know this, like if you're woke, then you need to wake up to this. All right, black people in China banned from McDonald's and evicted from their homes over corona fears. Let's see. Notice we've been informed that from now on, black people are not allowed to enter the restaurant. Reads a sign outside McDonald's in Guangzhou. It is advertised that all black patrons notify the local police and seek medical isolation. McDonald's has since removed the sign, closed the store, and issued a statement saying the notice was not representative of China's inclusive values. Inclusive values. Anyways, but black people living in Guangzhou have told the Independent it is just one example of the racist abuse they have faced during the coronavirus crisis. Max, who is from Sierra Leone and has lived in southwest Port City for the last 5 years, says Chinese authorities forced him from his home and put him in quarantine, despite having tested negative for COVID-19. I waited outside for 14 hours in the rain, and eventually I had to go look for other temporary places to stay, he says. They told him he needed to go to the station to get an extension on his visa. But when he arrived, they refused to give him a stamp and said he wasn't allowed to go back to the apartment. The police asked me to pay for a hotel, but I had no money on me. Let's see. When Max tried to go back to his apartment later, he says he and 2 other friends were pushed to the ground by police and taken to a quarantine center. He told authorities that he has been tested for COVID 2 days ago and results came back negative. But the police said quarantine was standard procedure for Africans in the city. He was kept for a few days and had to undergo several tests. According to Max, dozens of his friends from African countries have all been forced into quarantine, yet none of them have left China since the start of the coronavirus outbreak. To be honest, I feel really uncomfortable in China and I want to go home, Max says. Some of my friends were kicked out of their apartments. They have nowhere to stay. They were just students and they have test results to prove that they are healthy. But instead, the Chinese just decided to treat us like animals because that's what they do. They themselves are fucking dogs and pigs. Fuck the Chinese. Sorry. Like other local residents, Luke says he has been stringently following protocols rolled out by the Chinese government since the coronavirus outbreak. Originally from Tongo, he has been studying Chinese for more than 3 years. He says doctors and police showed up at his apartment unannounced and asked him to test for COVID-19. Like, well, yeah, they showed up unannounced. It's fucking China. Pigs. They told me my result was negative and I thought I was safe. But 2 days later, they showed up at my apartment again, and this time they told me my roommates to undergo a 2-week quarantine, he says. He says some of his friends have been evicted and landlords have told them that they are no longer wanted to rent their houses to Africans. I feel rejected by the Chinese people and I am only here to study Chinese, Luke tells The Independent. When we see how people from Africa are being treated in Guangzhou, I don't have hope of staying here. I also don't feel like continuing my study here. It hurts me a lot. There's been growing concern in China over the threat of imported corona cases, which have been on the rising numbers of domestic cases. Basically, China blamed black people, and if you look at, there's other videos where they're like messing with people on the train, all that stuff. Like, they're pretty racist. So, like, if your Democratic senator is, in league with China, or has this, like, and isn't for bringing the jobs back and cutting off our ties to China, like, they support racism. See, it's not unusual. Most of the left are racist. If you look at the way that the ideology and if you really stop and start thinking critically about what you're being taught, you're being taught to be a racist. And then if you look at the white liberal leftists, notice how they always promise you free stuff or they get you angry about stuff. But then they're like Nancy Pelosi's area, how it's terrible and there's lots of homeless. Like, nothing changes. And see, and you talk about the conservatives because we're not for like the whole welfare thing, like to the extent that you guys have it. And I say you guys, it's white people, it's everyone. Everyone has the welfare. There's more white people on welfare than like blacks. So, yeah, okay, I'll grant you that. But I'm saying for blacks specifically, like, you gotta get off the welfare system. You gotta get off government assistance. How you do that? By keeping your families together. So not creating kids outside of wedlock. So getting married, stay together. Like, be more careful who you choose to be with, right? Like, the reason conservative, because we know that with this country, what you don't get, because a lot of you are trained to be foreigners in this country. And it used to be that, see, and it's funny because the white liberals were the racists, right? They were the ones the white racists, and they got all the white people riled up and that stuff. And now they just switched the boat. They just switched, like, oh, well, it's easier to control black people instead of trying to control white people, right? And now they control you. It's the same people, same ideology behind it. I mean, not necessarily, the same, the basic principle, because if they were progressives, and they'll tell you the progressives were the ones fighting, like, that's not true. That's not true. And we'll do some books and some videos on that too. But, yeah, if you want to change, you got to start taking responsibility for yourselves, keeping the family together, cleaning up your neighborhoods. You got to start snitching on people who shoot on people or who murder other people, and you got to get the murderers out of your communities. And then you can have peace. That way your little girl can play outside and not have to worry about a stray bullet going through her head or something like that. I'm gonna link a lot of these articles to the video. Shalom, and come back. Support me, support me, support me. Like I'll set up a way. Just let me know you support me by likes and subscribe, and then eventually we'll work on some way to support me money wise. Because I'm moving, like, this war costs money, and that's what the left knows, and that's how they organize. So get behind me, and so we can start moving forward together. Eventually they'll take me out, but by launching me, they'll create a platform for me to launch others as well. And there's other people like me. You can see they have small channels. Like, get behind them. The right is not a white supremacist movement. The right is one who accepts all colors, and what we actually care about is just leave us alone. But since you won't leave us alone, now we have to. It's our turn to start pushing back, start taking our country back. Shalom. I'll see you.